Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Springdale's 2025 Candidates Night. This event is hosted by the Springdale Community Forum, a volunteer, nonpartisan group created to provide a fair and open space for civic dialogue. Our goal is simple but important: to give residents the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, learn about their perspectives, and engage thoughtfully with the issues that shape our community. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to recognize and thank the committee responsible for making tonight's event possible: Jude Figlow, Darcy Carlson, and Adrian Player. Thank you all for your incredible contribution of time, knowledge, and energy in bringing the Springdale Community Forum to life. Since October 1st, the forum has received approximately 120 questions from residents, which we have carefully reviewed and refined into the questions that will be presented tonight. Finally, we extend our sincere thanks to the town of Springdale for providing this venue at the Canyon Community Center, and to the town staff for their assistance and support in hosting this event. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator. The Springdale Community Forum is honored to welcome Kevin Jacobson as our moderator this evening. Mr. Jacobson is the chair of the Political Science and Criminal Justice Department at Southern Utah University. A retired U.S. Army colonel, he served more than 30 years in the Judge Advocate General's Corps, where he gained extensive experience as a prosecuting attorney, defense counsel, and criminal justice administrator. Over his distinguished career, he led some of the Army's largest legal operations worldwide and taught criminal law as Associate Dean at the Army Judge Advocate General School. Mr. Jacobson holds degrees from Utah State University, Brigham Young University, the Army Judge Advocate General School, and the U.S. Army War College. He's been a member of the Utah State Bar since 1984. Colonel Jacobson, we are grateful for your participation this evening, and we thank you for your service. If everyone will please join me in welcoming Colonel Kevin Jacobson.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here. Tonight's program is designed to be fair, respectful, and informative. Each candidate will have equal time to share their views. We'll begin with a 90-second opening statement from each candidate. Then we'll transition to a question and answer period. I will alternate questions between candidates. Both candidates will receive the same questions, and responses will be limited to 60 seconds. After that, we'll move to a rapid-fire round, where candidates will answer a series of questions with a simple yes or no. Finally, each candidate will have 3 minutes for closing statements at the end of our session. Now, we ask everyone in attendance to remain courteous throughout the evening, and this is critical. Please hold applause or any reactions until the end of the closing statements so that all candidates can be heard equally and clearly, and please silence any cell phones or other devices at this time. Our candidates before you, on your left is Ms. Barbara Bruno, and on your right, Mr. Pat Campbell. We'll now proceed with opening statements, and we'll go first with Ms. Bruno. 90 seconds, please.
Hi, I'm Barbara Bruno, and I am the mayor of Springdale, Utah. I'm a native of Price, Utah, and I've been in this area since 2012. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in business from Westminster College in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I have an MBA from the University of Utah. I earned both of those degrees while I worked full-time and raised my son, so you get a pretty good idea of how many balls I can juggle at the same time. Still doing that at my age now. I had a 45-year career, and I held leadership positions in the private sector, and then I was chair of the Planning Commission, so I also held a leadership position in the public sector before becoming mayor. I decided to run 4 years ago in order to enhance the resident experience in Springdale, and that is still my absolute focus. While I'm only one of 5 votes on the town council, I've led out on a lot of the initiatives that we've completed over the last 4 years. There are too many for me to mention right now, but the ones I'm most proud of are probably getting fiber to every residence in the town of Springdale and getting Verizon cell service between La Verkin and Rockville. Those two projects will benefit millions of people for years to come. I'm very proud of that. I said 4 years ago that I thought I was the right person at the right time, and I believe I'm still the right person. You should have received a letter in August outlining the accomplishments over the last 4 years, and then you should have received one this week talking about what I'm still working on. Everything on that list will benefit residents of Springdale now and in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. Your presence shows how much you care about Springdale.
You turn it on the bottom.
How's that? Excellent, excellent. Well, again, thank you for being here. I'm Pat Campbell, and some of you know me from my service on Town Council and the Planning Commission. But tonight I want you to know more about the person behind the titles. Right after Riley, my wife and I were married, the following day we packed up a van and headed to West Coast. And when we arrived, she got a job right away, and I had to get a job driving a truck. During that experience, I met a Southern Oregon State police officer who convinced me to apply for a job as a police officer, which I did. And during the interview, they asked me why I wanted to be the police. And I figured I'd tell them the pat answer, which is I just want to help people. But I decided to be honest with them, and I told them I just need a job. And they hired me. And I thought about telling them, well, I wanted to help people, but I realized that in the 30 years that I was a police officer, it really was about helping people, but not the way I thought. It wasn't about telling them how to solve their problems. It was about helping them solve their problems. I'm sorry. And I found out the best way to do that was to do the right thing at the right time, the right way, for the right reason. See, serving others has shaped who I am, and serving Springdale is what I want to do.
Thank you. Now we'll proceed with our questions. I will read the question first, and then I will call on each of you to respond. As a public official, what achievement are you most proud of, and what do you wish you had handled differently? Mr. Campbell first.
Well, I think I'm most proud of being elected to town council. It was a tremendous honor to be able to do that. I think the thing I was most proud of on town council was the ability for us to collaborate and to get things done together. And the rest of the question was what, sir?
And what do you wish you had handled differently?
I wish I had voted differently on a most recent issue, which had to do with Zion Outfitters. I felt that the town probably did not get a fair shake by not allowing that to go to an investigation at the town council level.
Thank you. Ms. Bruno, as a public official, what achievement are you most proud of, and what do you wish you had handled differently?
Well, I just covered that in my opening. I think I'm most proud of getting fiber to every residence in Springdale. And what I wish I'd handled differently are several things, but probably the medical clinic purchase. I think that I would have handled that differently if I had that to do over again. I think the outcome might have been the same, but the process could have been a little more smooth.
Thank you. Next question. What is the single most pressing issue in Springdale today, and how would you address it if elected? Mr. Campbell.
Well, I think the single most pressing issue is actually our town's survival on three fronts. First, our actual physical survival, water quality, and our waste treatment. Secondly, our cultural survival. How do we survive adjacent to a national park like this? How do we maintain our identity? And lastly, our emotional and spiritual survival. How do we help the people that are having a tough time? And I think that those are the three pressing issues, all under the umbrella of our town survival, that are most important.
How would you address these if elected?
Well, in terms of physical survival, I would work on the water quality and assurance of water. There are initiatives that the Planning Commission is working on to get this done. I think when it comes to infrastructure, we need to work on our sewer system, and we need to guarantee that that's safe. Thank you.
Ms. Bruno, what is the single most pressing issue in Springdale today, and how would you address that if elected?
I think the single most pressing issue in Springdale today, from a resource standpoint, is water. We have very old water rights, and we should be good as long as the Virgin River is running. I think it's great that we don't buy water from the Water Conservation District and that we have our own sources, and again, that we have these grandfathered in rights. I think socially, our biggest problem is getting to be division. I think that Springdale has always been a town where we all got along and we're sort of like-minded and love the environment and treated it with respect. And I'm seeing some damage to the resources. I'm seeing some divisions within the town. How I would handle that, certainly water, I will continue to encourage water conservation and bring Utah State University in to work both individually and with the town on how to best use our water. And with the social problem, I'm not sure what the answer is. I wish I did, but I'm committed to do my part, whatever that is.
Next question. Considering the significant pressure for unrestricted growth in the state of Utah and Washington County, how do you balance this pressure with residents' desires to maintain a village character? First, Ms. Bruno.
There is continuing pressure. I think that here we're in a different position because we're just landlocked and there really isn't a lot of land to build big developments. I work with all the other mayors in Washington County and they have a lot more problem with unbridled growth. But I think here we just have to keep pushing back on developers. We need to keep the 2-story limits on our properties, and we need to enforce our setbacks, enforce our ordinances, and just make sure that we're getting what we want within what we can do legally. I know some people, for example, wish we wouldn't open any more bike shops, but we don't have the right to eliminate those. So like to get more businesses that we want and fewer that we don't, but we do have to work within the law. And so maybe the state will start cooperating with us a little bit more and let us have more say locally.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, considering the significant pressure for unrestricted growth in the state of Utah and Washington County, how do you balance this pressure with residents' desire to maintain a village character?
I think first and foremost, our zoning laws are strong. But I really think that the Planning Commission, and I give them a lot of credit, could do much more in terms of long-term planning. Much of what the Planning Commission does, and again, I give them credit, is put out fires. But I think the Planning Commission should look forward. Instead of hitting the target that no one else can hit, they should probably hit the target that no one else can see. If we can plan forward and figure out where this development is going to occur and install zones and enforce the zones in those areas, I think we're going to be okay. But I do agree with the mayor on this. The pressure is on, and it's coming from Salt Lake. And communication with them is important.
Thank you. This next is a 2-part question. The first part, in your view, are Springdale's ordinances being enforced evenly and effectively across the community? First, Mr. Campbell.
Well, as far as I know, I think that they are. I don't see any discord between how the codes are written and how they're being enforced. I do know that we're being stretched thin when it comes to personnel to enforce that code. And I don't know what else we can do about that. But I sincerely believe that our codes are being followed as best they can.
Second part, are there any ordinances you believe should be reconsidered or removed altogether?
Well, I strongly believe that the workforce housing overlay zone needs to be eliminated and reworked, perhaps. As you recall, the Planning Commission turned that down 3-1 several years ago, and it was passed 4-1 by Town Council over the objection of about 23 of us that were at that meeting. If I could pull one code off the books, it would be that, with the caveat that we'd take another look at it.
Ms. Bruno, in your view, are Springdale's ordinances being enforced evenly and effectively across the community?
I think our ordinances are being enforced evenly, but I'm not sure they're being enforced effectively. I think that developers and even people who live here and own businesses are finding loopholes that we couldn't have anticipated. And so it's kind of a moving target. I think we're doing as well as we can. I think that we potentially should have 2 code enforcement officers, and maybe we could get the building inspector to do a little bit more of the code enforcement.
Secondly, are there any ordinances you believe should be reconsidered or removed altogether?
Not removed altogether, not at this time. I think we've removed some that should have been, like the cottage housing overlay zone, which kind of backfired on us. I think some of the ordinances need tweaking, and we're constantly doing that. I think that the change to the sign ordinance was a good one. We shouldn't do one thing and expect something else from other people. But I think our ordinances are good and they're strong, and there are none I would outright repeal, no.
Thank you. Next question. If the town were to face declining revenues, what specific strategies or priorities would guide your approach to balancing the budget? First, Ms. Bruno.
Well, I think over time we have ebbed and flowed with the amount of revenue that we have, and I think we do a good job of putting some projects on hold. Right now, we have a couple of shortages in the staff. You know, we're getting more parks and places like that to maintain, and we haven't gotten any more people to maintain those. But certainly some of the buildings that we have planned could be postponed or reduced in size, or sort of the amenities, so to speak. I don't think that there's anything that we would have to do that would impact residents. I think things would just be postponed. But it is a realistic, it is realistic that our revenues will be down, especially with the current government shutdown, and we're talking about what we would do about that.
Mr. Campbell, if the town were to face declining revenues, what specific strategies or priorities would guide your approach to balancing the budget?
Well, first and foremost, the planned building for the medical center, the size of that building that's proposed would have to be drastically reduced, especially since the medical center we have, although stretched, is only seeing about 30 patients on the average a week. I would secondly dramatically reduce the plan for the town hall, which on the books right now, and again, this is in the offing, is 15,000 square feet with 3 floors, a basement, a main floor, and a top floor. So dramatically reducing that and expanding maybe the building that we have. The post office building is set for 2,000 square feet, but I think that's way down on the list, but it's on the map, especially since after I've talked with the man that owns the post office building, he's told me that he's willing to expand it to accommodate our needs. So I think taking those 3 things off the top, especially since we're $15 million in bond debt.
Next question is also a 2-part. First part, and this is a yes or no question. The Lion Boulevard land acquisition was predicated on 3 core objectives: to construct a new medical clinic, a post office, and a town hall. If the lease for the current post office has been renewed for another 5 years, should the town move forward with the remaining 2 objectives on that property? Yes or no, Mr. Campbell?
No.
What is your alternative vision and action plan for this public use zone land?
What I would do is I'd see if the town wants to put its money where its mouth is. We want workforce housing. We have 2 acres there. We have a parking problem, and 2 residents here in town brought me a perfectly good plan, and I know nobody likes the word parking structure, but a several hundred unit parking structure could be put subterranean on that land, on top of which you could put workforce housing. And if you wanted to put a small medical clinic in the basement or the first floor of one of those buildings, that could be accomplished. That's what I would do with that land.
Ms. Bruno, 2 parts. The Lion Boulevard land acquisition was predicated on 3 core objectives: to construct a new medical clinic, a post office, and a town hall. If the lease for the current post office has been renewed for another 5 years, should the town move forward with the remaining 2 objectives on that property? Yes or no?
Yes, absolutely.
How would these projects be funded?
The medical clinic that's being designed right now is not an overly large building, and we have got funding from the Office of Economic Development for the design. We have expended no money for the building itself. But when the time comes, if there is a need for that building, we will bond it, we will get grants. There's a lot of money available for rural health. The post office, the current owner of the post office cannot expand the post office. We've done a lot of work looking into that. The lot is not big enough, and he would like to build a building on the new property, and that building would be a lot more appropriate for our needs. If I had more time, I'd get into all the things the post office could offer if there were space in the building. And the town hall is not designed at all. That's a future project. We are busting at the seams in our current town hall, and the police department is in the basement. And that's not even in my next term, assuming I get a next term. So I think we did the right thing by acquiring land.
Thank you. Next question. Given Springdale's proximity to Zion National Park and the challenges of tourism, traffic, and natural disasters, how would you strengthen local emergency preparedness and ensure resident safety? First, Ms. Bruno.
Yeah, I think that it's great that we have SR9 that goes both ways, and there are 2 escape routes from the canyon. I think that the old emergency preparedness plan needs to be updated, and we are actively working now on an emergency preparedness center. It will be located on the property we acquired next to Town Hall. It will be emergency power, and it will provide power for this whole complex, and this complex would become a heating and cooling center. This is something we're working on. It's not a pie-in-the-sky thing, and we are currently working on, as I said, updating that plan. There's a CERT organization that's been kind of falling off that people are trying to get started up again, but I don't think we can rely on that. I think we, the town staff and our police department, need to up the game.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, given Springdale's proximity to Zion National Park and the challenges of tourism, traffic, and natural disasters, how would you strengthen local emergency preparedness and ensure resident safety?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that earlier this year, I did prepare an emergency disaster plan and presented it to the mayor, who reviewed it and told me to send it to the chief of police, and that's where it is. So the first thing I would do is train the staff on ICS and NIMS training, which is disaster response training. Staff needs to know how to do this. The police need to know how to do it. And then invite the public to do the same thing. So we're all on the same sheet of music about what we need to do locally, right here, when disaster strikes. Because it'll be 60 minutes, a day, 72 hours before we get help, depending on the size of the disaster. We need to help each other. I have a plan to do that, and my prior job, we did these kinds of things. And we had plans, and I know how to put them together. It needs to be a local plan. We need to be able to help each other until we get help from the state or the federal government.
Next question. What actions will you take to increase public participation in town council meetings? And is there any opportunity to change the format of public hearings to encourage citizen participation? Mr. Campbell.
Well, the first thing I would do is I would not limit, and I know there's reasons why you shouldn't, but I would not limit the amount of time that a resident makes a comment. I know it's limited to 3 minutes, and I know we have 2 hours, but I have nothing else to do after that 2 hours. So if you want to take 10 minutes to talk about it, let's talk about it. Don't repeat yourself, but we should allow you to make your point, and you should get a response. If the response can't be right then and there, because it's an intricated response, then staff will respond to you later, but you will get a response. We should not sit like 5 lumps on a log when you make a comment. That's the very first thing I would do. The next thing would be voting. We vote now left to right. I would change the voting order. Left first, the next motion, the next person votes first, the next motion, the next person, and the mayor will always vote last, so we know exactly where the mayor stands on any given issue.
Ms. Bruno, what actions would you take to increase public participation at town council meetings? And is there an opportunity to change the format of public hearings to encourage citizen participation?
Well, I think that our allowing people to make comments at the beginning of the meeting, regardless of the subject, are important. And I think that there are times we have a limit on the amount of time and times we don't, depending on the number of people in the room and that kind of thing. We cannot take comments and questions from the public and act on those. We need to notice anything we're going to talk about, and that's why we sit like bumps on a log. We can bring those to the next meeting and act on those. But as to the mayor voting last, I have changed the voting order in my term in both a couple times, but I think the mayor voting last is letting the mayor off the hook, because by then we know whether that's going to pass or fail. And so I think it, if anything, does the opposite of what Mr. Campbell is suggesting. So I think we could do some random voting or something like that, but I don't think there's any advantage to voting last.
Thank you. This next question is also two parts. Some local workers have said they prefer not to live in Springdale because housing here is more expensive and farther from groceries, family, and community activities. They value having a job in town, but not necessarily living here. Given that, what is your current position on workforce housing?
Is it me?
Yes, Ms. Bruno.
Okay.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Mr. Keniston of the Planning Commission and I did an extensive survey of the businesses in town. And what we learned is that there are a lot of people who work in town who do not want to live here for the reasons you mentioned. And there are at least 20 to 25% who would live here if they could. We are never going to be able to provide housing here for any more than that, not even that many. But I think that if we could provide housing for a small percentage of people who live here, it would enhance our community. They would be part of the fabric. We would get more diversity, and frankly, we're aging out and we're losing population. So I think it's really important. And again, I know it's not for everybody, but wouldn't it be nice if those people who want to live here had a shot at it?
Second part, should the town government continue to prioritize creating more opportunities for it, or do you believe it is the responsibility of business owners? Ms. Bruno.
I believe that it is the responsibility of all of us, the business owners and the town. But we're not talking about employee housing as a town. We're talking about workforce housing. Employee housing is tied to your job. So if you lose your job, you lose your home. We want housing where people could work for different employers and remain a part of our community. And the town is not a housing authority and doesn't want to be. So we just need to encourage, we need to give incentives to private developers to build that housing, and I think it's a worthwhile endeavor.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, I'll read the first part of the question for you.
Thank you.
Some local workers have said they prefer not to live in Springdale because housing here is more expensive and further from groceries, family, and community activities. They value having a job in town, but not necessarily living here. Given that, what is your current position on workforce housing?
Well, first and foremost, I don't think we can create public policy based on anecdotes. I think an empirical analysis of the issue, not the problem. You call it a problem, you're begging the question, what is the problem? Tell me how many workers we have in town. How many want to live here? How many can afford to live here? Do they live with somebody else? What kind of rent are they paying? Are they getting benefits? Are they working more than 40 hours? And I could go on and on. We don't have the answers to very many of these questions at all. Once we have a good idea what the demographic is, then we can craft a solution to whatever the issue is. And if it's a problem, we address it that way. I've asked how many times in council, how many workforce housing units do we need? And I wouldn't even say town council, generally. Only one person has told me, and he's on the planning commission, he estimated the number at about 100. Well, at least it's a target. Now, I don't know how empirical that analysis was, but at least it's a target.
Second part, should the town government continue to prioritize creating more opportunities for housing, or do you believe it is the responsibility of business owners?
Well, I think the town needs to create opportunities, but bear in mind, it's not the town's job to build housing for employees of businesses. I think they can assist the business. We can work on zoning issues to help them do that. As far as providing incentives to developers, well, a developer wants to make money, and that's their bottom line. And if we don't present an incentive that is really lucrative, they're just not going to do it. I think if a business owner says, I need housing for my employee, that business owner needs to be front and center on any solution. We have a housing committee, And there's 2 of us on the Housing Committee, the mayor and I, and 2 members from the Planning Commission. There is no one from the business community. There is no one from the community at large. And the business owners should have a stake in what we decide in the Housing Committee.
Thank you. Next question, and this is likely our last. How do you, Mr. Campbell, how do you define your role as a leader as it relates to the roles and responsibilities of staff? In other words, who runs the town?
Well, the town is run by town council, and the mayor acts at the direction of town council. Think about the motions that are passed. Whatever the verbiage is, at the very end, the last line is, and town council directs, or the town council authorizes the mayor to sign. The town council is responsible to you as a constituency. The mayor acts on their direction. Now, the mayor is the face of the town and can go out and talk to people and try and work deals and try and explore opportunities. But in the end, when it comes to some action, the town council pulls the trigger on that. The town council makes it happen.
Ms. Bruno, how do you define your role as a leader as it relates to the roles and responsibilities of staff? In other words, who runs the town?
Well, I think that a lot of us run the town. I think town council, I see it, if you are in the private sector, we are the board of directors, and we're getting the 30,000-foot view. We're not making the day-to-day decisions. We are instead getting involved with the things that need a little more attention, a little higher approval level. And all of us on town council have 1 vote each. Any of us can lead out on any initiative, and in fact, some of us do and some of us don't. But who runs the town? I think that the town manager runs the day-to-day operations. I think the police chief plays a large role, but I think that we have a fantastic staff that all takes ownership of how the town is run and how they treat the residents and the appearance of the town. I think we're really lucky to have the staff that we have, and I know the town manager gets some flack from some of you, but you know, whether or not you want to hang out with him, he's a fantastic manager.
We'll now transition to a series of rapid-fire questions. These are all designed to call for just a yes or no answer. The first question, have you read the general plan, Ms. Bruno?
Yes?
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Do you support allowing public participation via Zoom for Planning Commission and Town Council meetings? Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Ms. Bruno?
Yes.
This is a multi-part question. We'll start with Ms. Bruno. Do you support the construction of, and I'm going to list a variety of facilities here. Do you support the construction of a new town hall,
Yes.
a recreation center,
Yes.
a maintenance building to replace the existing 50-year-old structure,
Yes.
a new post office,
Yes.
a medical center,
Yes.
a history center,
No.
additional hiking and biking trails,
Yes.
and lastly, the Barker River Park expansion project?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell, same questions. Do you support construction of a new town hall,
No.
a recreation center,
No.
maintenance building to replace the existing 50-year-old building,
Yes.
a new post office,
No.
a medical center,
Yes.
a history center,
Yes.
additional hiking and biking trails,
Yes.
and lastly, the Barker River Park expansion project?
No.
Mr. Campbell, first, do you support the issuance of bonds for land acquisition?
Yes.
Ms. Bruno?
Yes.
Ms. Bruno first, are you satisfied with Springdale's parking situation?
No.
Mr. Campbell?
No.
Mr. Campbell first, do you think Springdale should have an ad hoc budget committee?
Yes.
Ms. Bruno?
Not sure.
Ms. Bruno next, do you support a live person answering the main town phone number?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell first, do you support a requirement for the town manager to live in Springdale?
Yes.
Ms. Bruno?
Yes.
Ms. Bruno next, do you support a requirement for the police chief to live in Springdale?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell first next. Based on results of the state-required fraud risk assessment report, do you believe Springdale should have a formal audit committee?
Absolutely. Oh, that's a yes, in case you're wondering.
Thank you. Just spelled longer,
Yeah.
that's okay. Ms. Bruno?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll now transition to our closing statements. Mr. Campbell, you'll begin, and you have 3 minutes for a closing statement.
Thank you. I'd like to share a little story about, to illustrate what I'll do as mayor. I was a police officer in the 1990s in Oregon, working graveyard, and there was a crash call that I rolled on, and it was cold and rainy, and it was wintertime. And when I got there, there was a car on its roof, and I got up there, and I was the only car there, and I crawled through the window, and up above was a woman hung by her seatbelt, and directly above me, a little boy in his seatbelt. And I took him down, and I pulled him out through the window, and I dragged him back to my police car. And when I was walking back there, I asked him if that was his mom, and he said it was. And I put him in my police car, and I said, listen, you need to take care of my car. I'll go help your mom, but you're in charge. Can you do that for me? And he said, yes. Well, I went back up there, and about this time, rescue rolls up. And we pulled the mom out, and I went back to get the little boy, and I brought him back to the ambulance and handed him off. Now, this wasn't my call, so I packed up and left. Fast forward 20 years, and I'm teaching at a leadership academy for new sergeants. And at the end of my session, a young sergeant walks up to me and he says, Sergeant Campbell, you don't know me, do you? I said, no, I don't. And then he tells me about the story that night. And I asked him, how did you know this? And he said, I was that little boy. And he says, and ever since you told me that I was in charge of a police car and you went up to help my mom, all I ever wanted to do was be a policeman. Thank you, Sergeant Campbell. And then he left. And it's always reminded me that's what's important in public service, whether you're in uniform or as a mayor, is how you treat people, how you show up when times are at their worst, how you treat them with respect, how you make them feel safe and valued in the hardest times. That's the kind of leadership you can expect from me. And that's the kind of mayor I will be for you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bruno, 3 minutes, please.
Okay. When I came into office almost 4 years ago, I was fortunate to have been endorsed by the former mayor who's in the room, and he helped me a lot to get going and up and running quickly. I came into the position with a lot of relationships from my long career, but I quickly started forming new relationships that would benefit the town of Springdale. I know all of the elected officials in Washington County. I know our state senator and state representative. I know the governor and lieutenant governor. And I even know our elected federal representatives. You might think this doesn't matter, but let me tell you how it matters. When the property above Rockville that's owned by the BLM was on the list for sale to the county, I called Congresswoman Malloy's cell phone and I talked to her about my concerns. And half an hour later, I got a call back from County Commissioner Almquist, who said the property would be removed from the sale parcels. I work closely with Zion National Park, and I sit on the visitor management team. When the state and county decided to reduce the size of that team and get rid of all the municipalities, I fought for Springdale to keep a seat. Nobody is more impacted by visitation to Zion National Park than we are, and we need to be heard. I couldn't have done that without the relationships that I have, and I've formed those very deliberately. Notwithstanding the unprecedented negative campaigning we're seeing right now, I and the current council we listen to the community on every issue. We have been elected to do what's best for the community, which isn't always what any one individual or group wants to have us vote for. I will continue to make decisions with complete information, to act with integrity, to keep an open mind, and to be a professional and reasonable representative and spokesperson for the town of Springdale. And I will continue to take the high road in this campaign and beyond. If you don't like the way I vote in issues, here's something for you to consider. There have been a total of 36 town council meetings since Mr. Campbell came on council and we served together. We have only voted differently on 3 motions out of 36 meetings. All 3 were in September of 2024, over a year ago. He voted against a parameters resolution without stating why, as protocol would have him do. He voted against the employment agreement for the town manager because he felt there should have been a 3-year term. And he voted against a motion to approve a development agreement for workforce housing at the Bid and Spur property, again, without saying why. Given that our voting records are practically identical, why wouldn't you vote for the candidate that has the relationships, the experience, and the momentum? I'd be honored to continue to serve, and I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have a round of applause for our candidates. Now, we'll break, and we ask that you be back in your seats by that clock by 6:55. There's refreshments in this anteroom behind you here, and then we'll transition to our town council candidate debate.
Good job. Yeah, we're really different.
Sir, well done.
I remember, I did know that.
I'll cut off the questions.
Love this format. Can you what you thought of this? Especially about the virus.
All right, let's get into that.
That's mine, yeah. This is an amazing job. This is really good. No, I'm gonna tell you now, because I'm leaving. I'm not leaving. No, I'm not leaving.
You love it, you do it, right?
I'm hitting it right now, actually. I kick this off? Or is it, yeah, I kick it off, okay.
There's no reason why we shouldn't.
Yep.
So it can be you, it can be, it doesn't matter to me how we do that. The 6:55. We may not even need to do it because I suspect that people are already starting to shift back. So as soon as we
We can
get.
give a 2-minute warning.
Yeah, exactly. Just 5 minutes, did you see that?
So let me give you a 2-minute warning here. If you would take your seats, we're going to try to start promptly at 7 for the next phase of our debate here. I never had any in-person interaction, but I know.
Yeah, I don't know why I've been stressing about it. I don't think that these nights make that big of a difference, to be honest with you. So I don't know why I'm putting myself through all this torture.